But we'll dive right into it. Again, we'll focus on host testings today, but we'll talk about some other critical assets as well that you might have. So from a PSTrax standpoint, we're going to be talking about our critical asset module. That's kind of the module where we track all of these different types of high dollar assets that you have. If you're familiar with NFPA, which I'm sure probably all of you are, the chapter or the section dedicated to the host testings is NFPA 1962, and the most recent edition was in 2018 for that. Some of the high-level components, and it's 35 pages long, so it's not overwhelmingly long, but if you want a fun read sometime, fun with air quotes, you can you can pull that up. It's actually free on the nfpa.org website, so if you want to view it for free, you can go on their website and pull it up and read it. If you want a hard copy, you do have to order that, but 2018 was the last edition, and a couple of the kind of key points that I pulled out just for reference. Obviously, we don't have time to go into a whole lot of detail, but one of the main bullet points was any hose manufactured prior to 1987 should be removed from service. And this was actually due to an update that they did to NFPA 1961. And NFPA 1961 is the standards for fire hose. So it wasn't so much an expiration term of the hose as much as an update to the NFPA 1961 standards, which is why they require any hose prior to 1987 to be retired. But also, in terms of the testings, and we'll talk about this a lot today, any hose that you have in service, NFPA recommends that it should be tested at least once per year. And then if you have any hose that's in storage longer than a year, it should also be service tested before being placed into service. So in regards to the main kind of frequency of your testings and servicing your hose, that's what's recommended by NFPA. Now, obviously that's not what every department does, but just in terms of the general guidelines, that's what NFPA suggests. Also, any hose that's removed from service due to repairs or being condemned, NFPA recommends that hose be tagged with a distinctive tag, and that the reason for the removal actually be written on the tag. So that way, if any crew members come up or anyone comes up to that piece of hose and is kind of wondering whether it can be used or not, they have a clear indication that it's out of service. Any personnel responsible for the repair and maintenance or repair a fire hose should fill out a report and basically indicate on that report why the hose was repaired and what was performed, or what work was completed on that hose. And then another big component we'll touch on today is the record keeping of your hose and all of the different inspections and testings that are completed. So NFPA recommends that you keep track of basically all these components here. So identification number, manufacturer number, your vendor size, length, the type of hose, construction, date received, date put into service, date of each service testing or repair. If there's any damage, that's being tracked, any exposure events, and then obviously the status. So if it's removed from service or if it's inactive or active. So there's a lot of these different attributes, right, that we need to keep track of. And so we'll show you within PSTrax how we kind of maintain all that information and keep it in a nice clean format for you. But from NFPA's perspective, those are kind of the key components that they'd like to see departments tracking. Now, when we get into discussions with departments, it's specifically around hose testing and their critical assets, a lot of times where we kind of go in those conversations is we'll start talking about, okay, maybe right now your agency is using paper or spreadsheets to track your critical assets or your hose testings. In reality, though, your operational requirements a lot of times exceed what those current processes are capable of. So obviously, if you're using paper or spreadsheets, that's kind of the most common example. there's usually a gap between, what you're doing on paper and then what you actually should be doing or what you'd like to be doing to kind of improve your department. And so a lot of times we see these common challenges with agencies that we speak with. It can be safety or compliance exposure. Maybe you have unnecessary budget expenses because of the way you're tracking things, inefficient operations, or even service delivery. As it relates to hose, maybe you get out to a fire and a stick of hose isn't working or breaks. Things like that actually require or actually reduce how well you're able to perform your jobs when you get out there on a call. So all these different areas, these are kind of from a high level, different challenges or pain points that we hear with in talking with different agencies. And really that common environment, so if you have manual processes like paper spreadsheets or even outdated systems, that really impacts all levels of the organization, right? The crews, the officers, and the command staff. And what these arrows are meant to depict is just kind of the different processes you have. And sometimes it might seem a little bit chaotic in the department. And you might have some of these common problems as well. So maybe missing equipment. So maybe your hose is missing or other critical assets go missing. You have things maybe breaking or expiring without knowing it. So there's all these different kind of components that come into play. And really that's PSTrax, what we're here to help solve. We kind of created one solution to help you streamline your communications, digitize and automate your processes, gain visibility and insight into your critical assets and the things that you're tracking. And then probably most importantly, as you all know, every agency does these things a little bit differently. So what we do at PSTrax is we customize the system specifically for each department we work with. So that way it's set up exactly to the processes that you have and set up with all the critical assets and all the information that you're tracking. If you're new to PSTrax, this is kind of what the platform looks like. You can use any device that you'd like. This is obviously what it looks like on a phone, but you can use a computer, an iPad, a tough book. It's all cloud-based. So regardless of what device you're using, you can just log on and start doing your checks. Again, we custom configure it for your department. So whatever assets you want to track, whether it be hose or hydrants, tick cameras, radios, whatever categories of assets that you have, we build those in the system for you. And then we also import all of your data that you have, all the different equipment and asset lists. You can also track alerts or track issues when they occur. So if you have a stick of hose that breaks or maybe needs repaired, the crew members at the station can actually set an alert and notify you as the administrator of that issue. So instead of maybe sending an email back and forth or having to pick up the phone and call their administrator, they can set that alert and then it'll be emailed or texted off to the appropriate people in your department. We do support barcode scanning as well. So if you have barcodes or QR codes on your hose or other assets, we can support that. So you can scan them. And typically, just so you know, we don't see that a lot in the field at the crew member level, but particularly for administrators, like if you have a warehouse with a bunch of assets and maybe an administrator that's in charge of scanning those assets and kind of keeping track of them, that's where we see that in play most. And then finally, most importantly, all the data is stored and kind of the whole point of the system really is to collect all that data, all the information about these assets. So instead of having your paper sheets or your spreadsheets, you can go in and download that history anytime you need it. Okay, and so from the system perspective, we have 7 different modules. We'll just kind of focus on the critical asset module for today, but down the road, if your department ever wants to add other modules, they're a la carte, so you can kind of pick and choose which modules you'd like to start with. For the critical asset module, these are some of the high-level functionalities in the system. You can track any type of asset, like I just mentioned. You can log any type of event. And what's pretty neat is we can set up different events for different types of assets. So for example, your hose that we'll talk about today, you'll probably have an annual hose testing event that you want to track. You might also have like an inventory event. So, having the crews check that they have their hose once a year or once every quarter, or whatever frequency you'd like. But for other asset types like hydrants, for example, you'll have different events. So your hydrants, you might have like an annual hydrant test or annual flow test. Your radios, maybe you have like an annual software update. So whatever different events that you want to log and keep track of, we can just build those in the system for you. What's nice is with all your assets, they're all in the system, right? So you can see where they were last located or last logged. So when you're trying to find an asset, you can go in and see where it was last located. You can also assign assets. So like a stick of hose, if you want to assign it to a particular rig or a particular vehicle, you can do that. Or if you want to assign it to a station or to maybe a warehouse, you can do that as well. And then the full history of each asset is tracked. So any event or change that's made to that asset, whether it's an annual hose inspection, an inventory check, a repair, maybe just it gets reassigned to another location or the status changes, all those different events get tracked. And then you can go in for each asset, you see the whole history, and then you can download that if you ever need it. In terms of the checks, obviously today we're kind of focusing on NFPA checks, but any other checks that you want to have completed for your assets, OSHA checks, DOT checks, or just department specific checks that your agency might have, we can build and customize all those for you. And that's unlimited as well. So as many checks, as many checklists as you like. Another nice thing about the asset module is you can track expiration dates for all of your assets. So when you're doing your budgeting or your planning, you can go into the system and pull an expiration date report, and it'll really clearly show you all the assets that'll be expired by a particular date. So if you're doing a 3-year budget, you can actually go out 3 years and then pull a report, and it'll show you all the assets that'll be expired within 3 years. So hopefully you can plan for that and prepare in your budgets to kind of phase in the replacement of those items. You can do cost tracking. So if you have items that are kind of constantly broken and needing repaired, you can actually track the cost of it and see the ongoing maintenance costs. So when you have items that I call them lemons, right? The lemons of the group that are always broken, you can see that and then replace them if you need to. And finally, we track the funding source as well. So if you have any grant funded equipment or maybe equipment that was purchased by the city or the county, you can track that. So you can easily filter by what assets were purchased from where. Okay, and for those that are, again, maybe new to PSTrax, we operate a little bit differently as a company. You might be familiar with other software vendors and probably have purchased other software for other areas of your organization. Typically, other software vendors, they'll provide the software, but then it's usually up to your team, your department, to learn the software, set it up, import your data, configure the software, test it, train everyone, and then roll it out to the crews. And so that's a big investment, right? And sometimes that'll take a few months to get completed. Oftentimes we hear stories of, I call it shelfware, where departments will buy software and then it kind of sits on the shelf because it never gets rolled out or never gets implemented fully. And so at PSTrax, we realize, most departments, I've never met a fire chief that has joined the fire service to take on IT projects. And so we realize that. We realize most of you don't have a lot of extra time or resources to dedicate to another project. And so at PSTrax, what we do is we try to take the whole thing off of your plate. Basically, all you have to do is just email us your documents, whatever format you have. And so like if you have a big Excel sheet or spreadsheet with all of your assets, you can just send that right to our team. And then we have an implementation team that will do all the heavy lifting for you. So we set up the software, we will import all of your data, we configure it based on your processes and how you'd like it set up. We test it, we help train your admins, and then we help you roll it out to the crews at the end. So we guarantee that, and it typically takes about 4 to 6 weeks is the average timeline. So it's a pretty quick process overall, but that's kind of how we initially build the project for you. And then after we initially build it, as you all know, the one constant in the fire service is that change is always happening, right? And so anytime things change, and that could be, you know, maybe you replace some assets, so you get new assets that you need loaded in. Maybe you want to revise a checklist or add a new checklist. You know, you have an academy graduate, so you have new crew members that need added into the system. Or maybe you just need some additional training, right? Anytime these changes occur, typically other software programs, they'll charge an additional fee, or they'll have like a per hour rate that they bill out for that additional help. With PSTrax, all that's included. So we provide unlimited support. You can call us anytime that you need us. I do want to point out, you don't have to rely on us if you don't want to. If you want to go into the system and make these changes yourself, you certainly are capable of doing that and have the ability to do that. But if you don't have time for it, or you need some help, you can call us and we'll take care of that. And usually it's a quick turnaround within a day, you know, usually for us to do that for you. And just quickly, a little background on us. We were formed in 2009. We work with 550 agencies around the country, have some up in Canada and down in Australia as well. And we're based out in Littleton, Colorado. Privately held and owned, which is also nice. And then we'll come back to kind of our upcoming events here in a little bit. But I'll go ahead and hop into the demo next and kind of show you what the module looks like. But Robbie, I'll check in with you here quickly, see if there's any questions so far.
Nothing at this time, Ryan. Hey, I'll give you a quick break. Thanks for all of that. Just a reminder to everyone as we jump into the demo site here, feel free to interrupt if there's something that you'd like to see or address, or maybe something that you currently do for your internal processes, but don't have a way to track it, for example, and like to see how we do it or best practices with PSTrax. So yeah, back to you, Ryan. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Robbie. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and hop in here. Again, it's a cloud-based system, all web-based, so you can use any device that you like. I'll go ahead and log in. And when you log in, it'll actually bring you to your home station. So this is kind of my home dashboard. I'm at station 1 right now. You can see up here. If you're a department with multiple stations, you can always change your station, your dashboard to another view. So if I'm filling in at station 2 for the day, I can always go to station 2 or another location if I need to. But I'll go back to station 1 here. And on your home dashboard, you'll see 3 sections. The schedule on the left will basically show the crew members anything that's due that day that they need to complete. So anywhere I see a number, that represents something that's due. In the middle here is any open alerts, and we'll talk about the alerts in a moment. I'll set one of those as an example. But basically, an alert is anytime something's broken or goes wrong, it's a communication that gets sent out to the appropriate people in your department. In addition to that communication getting sent out, it also will stay right here on the home page. So what's really nice about that is the crew members at the station, when they log in each day, they can see any new alerts. And if there's any updates to those alerts, they can see those as well. And then finally, the journal on the right, this is like a digital whiteboard. So any communications, it could be anything, training, pass on reports, things like that. You can post those here in the journal and then keep those records. So for today, we're going to kind of hop into the critical assets and specifically the hose inspections. When a crew member logs in, as I mentioned, they can see exactly what's due that day. So like on engine 1, down here below, we can see we have 9 asset checks. And so these are scheduled checks. You can also perform as needed checks as well. So I'll get into these in a little bit, but like if you get back from a fire and maybe you have a new, a new issue with an asset, you can report that as needed anytime. On your scheduled checks, these will just pop up whenever they're due. So like an annual hose inspection or an inventory check, if you want to do that once per year, that'll just pop up once per year here. And the crew members can click into that. And you can see here on engine 1, I have a few different asset types. So we have a tick camera. I just have one stick of hose. You would have obviously multiple sticks. We have some radios, other tools and equipment, even a couple drones that we carry around with us. But what the crew members can do on this page, we can see we have a normal inventory check. So we can just indicate whether that's present or not present. And once we do that, and actually I'm going to mark one that's not present as well, just so you can see what that does. Once we've marked those present or not present, we can log the items. On the next page, if there's any specific checks that you want to have performed as part of that inventory check, we can build those checks into the system so they can go through and just mark those as being completed. You can see on our hose, we don't have any checks built for that event. It's just a kind of a generic inventory check. And then down here below, this was the radio that I marked not present. And the reason I wanted to show you this is anytime something's marked not present in the system, that'll automatically send out an alert notification to your administrator that this item is missing. So as soon as a crew member basically identifies that it's missing, you as the administrator will be notified of that via an alert message. So we'll go ahead and log that. And because we had that missing radio, you can see here, this is the message, the alert message that'll be sent out. And these are the administrators or kind of the recipients that we've nominated or determined need to receive that alert. And once we set it, it'll be emailed and texted off to all these folks here. So we'll go ahead and do that. And then you'll notice that the inspections or the inventory checks that we've completed have now disappeared off of our schedule here. And if I go back to my home page, we should have 3 less. So I think we're down to 6. Yeah. So we just have 6 remaining scheduled checks to complete. So that's kind of how it works for the crew members. Obviously, on the crew member side, they're typically just doing, as it pertains to hose, they're usually just doing like an inventory check or letting you know if something needs repaired. And so if they have an instance where they get back from a call and they need to report a new issue, they can do an as needed check here. And they can log what item they want to report on. So we'll say, we're doing maybe we get back and our hose has a crack in it. We can come back, do an inventory check on that. And I'm going to say it's actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go back and do a different event. That was kind of a bad example because it doesn't really have a check associated with it. So we'll select our inventory or our hose, and then I'm going to try, I think I have an annual inspection set up for that. Okay. Yeah, sorry guys, this is kind of a bad example, but usually you would have another, we just don't have an event created here, but like a routine inspection event for your hose. And when you click that, you'd see some checks here. And so when you did the checks, if you saw an issue, you'd be able to set the alert right from there. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark it present again. This is where you would see those little check marks that I was showing you before, those green checks. And actually, we'll just do a generic alert down here below. So if you need to set an alert, you can click down here, set that, and then just like I showed you before, that'll log that alert message for you. So that's really all the crews have to do. So it's pretty straightforward for them. We'll just go ahead and log that off here. On the admin side though, what's really nice is we load in all of your critical assets. So in the asset list page, you can come in and basically see all of the assets across the whole department. So any type that you want to track, you can see we have a whole bunch of different categories here in our demo site, but furnaces, roofs, radios, tick cameras, drones, hydrants, and then for our hose, we'll click into that. Excuse me. We'll click into that there. We just have a couple sticks of hose here in our demo site. So we can see for each one though, where it's assigned. So this one's on engine 1, the serial number, ID number, the current status of it, description, manufacturer, model, source. And then on the right-hand side, some of the pertinent dates as well. So manufacturing date, purchase date, expiration date, and even the last logged location. So when you're trying to find an asset, you can come in here and see where it was last located as well. We can see right off the bat, I have one expired stick of hose, which is the one in red here. And you can filter by all these columns up above. So, normally you'd have, probably several hundred sticks of hose in this list. And so if I wanted to filter by expiration date to see what's expired or what's coming up for expiration, I can do that really quickly right there. Now, one thing we can do is schedule events for all these sticks of hose. So let's pretend that we want to set up an annual hose inspection for us to complete once a year. We can select all of our items, so we can do a bulk event. So we just have to do this one time. And we're going to schedule a annual hose testing for all these sticks of hose. And I'm just going to make it due today so that it comes up as due for us. And once we've done that, that event is now scheduled for all those items. So what's nice is when we go into our full schedule, this is kind of I call it the work queue, right? All the items that are going to be coming up for us to complete. We can go into our full schedule and we can filter by, if we just want to see our hose events, we can filter by those. And then down here below, it's going to show us, here's all of our events that are scheduled for our hose. And if I filter by the event type, I can see here's our annual hose testings, and they're all due today. So again, this is kind of the work queue that you can pull up as an administrator and see, okay, what's coming up for inspection or testing? What do we need to kind of get prepared for and start completing? So if we go out to engine 1 and we complete this event, we can log it right from here. So I can log the event. You can see here's our annual hose testing event. These are the specific tasks that we've set up. And you can have a lot more than this. We just have a few here, but we can customize these checks based on what you'd like to track. And this was what I was referencing earlier. When you have the check marks, if you have an issue, you can click right here to set one of those alerts that I showed. Actually, let's just go ahead and do that since I did it earlier. We'll just say crack and hose. And so once I log this event, we can also log where we did it. So it was on engine 1. Once I log it, and sorry, one last thing. If you send any of these testings out to a vendor, you can also track the cost of it. So if I want to put the cost in and then maybe attach the file of the testing results that they send us back, we can attach that right there. And then once I log this event, it's going to go into the history for that stick of hose. And I'm actually going to grab the serial number so I remember which one it was. So we'll log that event. Remember, I set that alert where I said it was cracked. So we're going to send out another alert message here. And then that'll go out to whoever we'd like it to. I'll just send it out to Captain Smith in this example. So we'll set the alert. It'll be emailed and texted to Captain Smith. And then that event is going to drop off of our schedule because we just completed it. So now we just have 2 annual host testing events left that we need to complete. Now, if I go back to my asset list page, which was the one I was on before, this is kind of the list of all the different sticks of hose, and I search by that serial number there. It'll pull up that particular stick of hose. And what's really nice is, and again, this is kind of the whole purpose, is to be able to track all the different events and history for these items. When I click into the details page, this is where that history resides. So for this particular stick of hose, 191002, on the right hand side, this is the whole history for it, and this is just the last 2 months, it looks like. But I can see all the different events. So there's that alert I posted where we had a crack in the hose. I can see right below it is the annual hose testing event that I just completed. And these were all the different checks associated with it. We had an annual inspection event, an inventory event. I can see here down below that there was a status change where it went from out for repair back to active. And so any of those events will all be down here in the history. If it gets reassigned to another location, that'll be down here as well. And you can go as far back as you need to. So if you need to pull the records, all the way back to the beginning of when it was brought into service, you can do that right from here. And then you can also export those results. So if you want to print it or drop it into an Excel file or a PDF file, you can do that really easily right from here. So that's kind of where the history for one item lives. You can also perform actions back here in the asset list page. So if you need to change the status of a particular item or multiple items, you can do that right from here. So remember, we set the alert that this one had a crack in it. So maybe we want to say it's out for repair right now. We can change the status, and then that'll be updated right there for us. And we can also reassign it. So maybe since it's out for repair, we bring it down to the maintenance shop, and we're storing it there for the time being. We can change the assignment to the maintenance shop, and then that'll be updated as well. So when I refresh my page, you'll see that that's now assigned to the maintenance shop right there. So it's really easy to kind of manage, those assets as they move around, keep track of the statuses. But that's kind of how we complete those different scheduled events as they come up. Any questions, Robbie, at this point? We've got a few other things I'll kind of walk through, but just wanted to check in real quick.
No, we're good, Brian. Hey, thanks for walking us through that. But no, nothing at this time, Ryan. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. Thanks. Well, I'll keep moving along here. Just a few other items I wanted to point out. I showed the history for one particular item, that stick of hose, but in the logs section here, you can also go in and pull a holistic report of all the different events you've done. So our annual hose testing, if we want to see all the hose testings that we've done, like for this month, or again, you can go further back if you'd like to, we can pull those up, and then it'll show us all the hose testings we've done during that period of time. So you can see down here below, it'll list them out one by one, and we can see who performed those events. So what user or what crew member completed those. We can see what stick of hose it was for, so the serial number, the ID number, and all that information will be right there. And then we can export this report as well. So if you want to print it, or again, put it in an Excel file or a PDF, you can do that as well. So that's a really handy report. And Same thing with other assets and other asset types, right? Like, maybe your hydrant routine inspections. If you want to see the history for any other event, you can just pull that up. And I don't have any of those for this time period, but if I go back a little bit, I think I'll have some. There we go. So, you can go as far back as you need, and then it'll just show you any of that history that you have. Another neat report we have is the expiration date report. And so I talked about this a little bit before, but if you're doing your budgeting or your planning, and maybe you want to go out 3 years, you're doing a 3-year budget, and you want to know what's coming up for expiration, we can go out to 2024 and pull up anything that's going to be expired. And I'll just kind of unfilter this. So these are all the items, all the assets that we have coming up for expiration. Anything in red means it's already expired. And then anything in black means it will be expired by that date you selected up above. So it's not expired yet, but it will be by the time that date you selected comes around. But you can filter this. So right now I'm looking at all types of different assets. If I just want to see my hose, I can pull up my hose and I can see I have one stick of hose that's actually currently expired right there. So that's a really handy report. Another nice one is the cost report. And this is where you can see any assets that are maybe costing more than they should to kind of stay in service and to maintain. So if I look at my hose, I don't think I have a really high repair cost on these, but we'll see. Actually, I take that back, I do. So you can see here, this is really high. So on these sticks of hose, I have a really high maintenance cost, kind of an aggregated maintenance cost for these sticks of hose. So what that tells you is that maybe it's time to replace these sticks of hose with some new ones that maybe don't cost as much to maintain and keep in service. Okay, well, Robbie, I think that was kind of all I wanted to cover. Actually, sorry, I just remembered one more thing. Just really quickly to show kind of how we build this in the settings. This is more of an admin feature, and we set all this up at the beginning. But you can have any type of assets. I've mentioned that a couple of times, but basically we just add the categories or the types of assets you want to track, and then obviously sort them the way you want to have them viewed. But really anything that you consider an asset, I know for some departments that's everything over $1,000. For others, it's everything over $5,000. So however you define it within your organization, we can set up those different categories that you want to track here. And then on an ongoing basis, anytime you get new assets that you need loaded into the system, as I mentioned before, you can send those to our team and then we'll load them in for you. Or if you want to come into the system and add those yourself, you can come into this add assets page. And then you can input that information either for one asset, or if you want to load multiple assets, you can do multiple at the same time as well if you need to. So just wanted to point that out. And then finally, I talked about how we can do all kinds of customized events based on what you want to track. So again, I don't want to overwhelm anyone. We set up all this for you when we build your system. So don't feel like you have to do this right at the start, but literally any event that you want to track, we can set up in the system here. So this is just a generic inventory check. We have a quarterly inspection, semi-annual inspection, repair, usage event. Here's our annual host testing event. And then down here below, these are the different checks that are associated with that event. So these can also be customized. We can build in additional checks and make those how you'd like them to be. Okay, I think I'm done now, Robbie. Thanks for letting me go through those. I'll just hop back here to the upcoming events page as well. But we'll go ahead and open it up for Q&A. If there are any questions, feel free to either input those in the chat and we can go through those.
And Ryan, I did get, I know you touched on this, did get a question in the chat here from regarding the reports, asking, we're really just most interested in looking at annual reports for grant funded equipment that they need to report to their board essentially. So I know you touched on that, but maybe as an example.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I apologize. I forgot to pull that out or pull that up. I'm going to go back to the asset list here. And I'm just going to clear this and look at all of our assets. So here in the asset list, there's actually there's a field. Where's it at? Oh, here it is, for source. And so this is where you can indicate if something's from a grant or from another funding source that you want to track. And what's nice is you can literally filter this down. So if I just want to see everything from the Denver grant, if I have to provide like an annual report of where it is and what the status is of it, I can just search for that source. And you can see here we have 3 assets that are from the Denver grant. These are all radios, it looks like, but then you can just export right from here or print that file if you need that. So it'll tell you, all the information about it, the status of it, where it's currently assigned. I know that's typically a big thing with those audits is you have to report on where it is. So that's kind of how you can do that. It's really simple just to kind of filter by whatever grant you want to look at, and then it'll just show you those assets related to it. Did that answer that question for you?
Yeah. Thanks, Ryan. It was more, I think, directed around like a cost report, but I'm sure that all of these other fields are super helpful as the assigned station. And yeah, thanks, Brian.
Yeah, sure. And yeah, on that cost report I was showing earlier, these fields will be on there as well when you export it. So when you export that cost report, it'll have the source column on there. So you can just filter that based on what grant you want to look at.
Great, thanks, Ryan. That's the only question I have to this point. We'll let it run maybe for a few minutes here. And if there's anyone else, just encourage you right now, or maybe, if you're joining us as a current PSTrax user, hey, thanks for being here. And, maybe there's something you need a little help with at your department, and we can kind of simulate that of how you could do it in your critical asset module. But in the meantime, Ryan, maybe we could go back to upcoming events, and I'll run another poll here in a moment too. But if, let's see, we're at the 17th of August. In about 4 weeks from now, you can join us for our SCBA webinar, where we're going to take a look at 1852 inspections and airfills and hydros. That's on September 21st. And that's diving, more in a little bit in addition and complement the critical asset module. If you're familiar with that, SCBA module is going to look pretty similar. That if you're new to PSTrax, in 2 weeks, September 7th, is a great webinar to join us to take a look at like a high level touch of different modules. So we'll look at vehicle and station for sure, and that maybe even touch on our controlled substance and narcotics tracking. So, but that's a quick, 5-10 minutes on each module. And I'm gonna launch another poll here real quick at the end. You should see this come up on your screen. So if you kind of like what you saw with a critical asset module today, if you're new to PSTrax and want to look at generating maybe a quote or pricing for multiple modules, not just a critical asset, we're happy to do that for you. If you're a current PSTrax client, would like to look at maybe adding on the critical asset module, like we mentioned, just tracking grant funded equipment at the end of the year, something like that, we're happy to get in touch with you too. So you should see that pop up. I'll let that run for the last few minutes here. Should be up on your screen. I just lost it. There we go. Ryan, anything else from you in closing?
No, just on the pricing side, Robbie, because I didn't really touch on that, just so folks know. If you are interested in pricing, like Robbie mentioned, feel free to just type that in the poll and we'll get that out to you for your department. But from a high level, the way the critical asset module is priced is per station. So it's $250 per station per year. Is the license fee, and then there's a one-time implementation fee, which is the same amount, $250 per station. So if you're a 4-station department, basically it's $1,000 per year, and then a one-time $1,000 for the setup fee. But overall, in the grand scheme of things, we try to keep it pretty cost effective. When you have $250,000 to $1 million in critical assets you're tracking, it's a pretty small investment. And what we find is that most departments have about a 7-to-1 return on investment in their first year, just from improvements of not losing equipment, knowing where things are, having good documentation and whatnot. So again, if you'd like a demo for your team or specifically specific pricing for your agency, just let us know and we'll be happy to get that for you. But that's all I got for today, Robbie. Thanks everyone for
time. Ron, I had a quick question come in from Richard.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, thank you for the question, sir. It looks like you missed this earlier. Can you go over how to put upload hose into inventory? Is what he's asking.
Yeah, Richard. Yeah, and we actually can do that for you, Richard. So if you have a list, like an Excel sheet or a spreadsheet with all of your hose, feel free to just send that to us, and then we can actually, our team will load that in for you, so that way you don't have to deal with it. And they do that pretty quick, usually within a day or two, they can get that loaded up. If you need to, kind of on a quick basis, if you want to add something in, you can do that as well by going to the menu and then going to settings and then assets, add assets right here. And that's where you can input, like if you're inputting some hose, you can do it one by one. Probably if you're doing hose, you can do multiple at the same time as well. So you can add different rows and add multiple items at the same time. But if you have a bunch, Richard, feel free just to send those to us, and then we can load those in for you.
Yeah, that's what we're here for. Nobody wants to
Yep.
take time away from your very busy day to be uploading, new assets into your software program for sure. We get that 100%. So hopefully I answered your question, Richard, but we do find our users, it's something they can just do really quickly, they'll do it. Otherwise, something more comprehensive, like a list of assets we can upload for you. So, well, thanks, Ryan, for going over that. I don't see anything else coming through here, and really appreciate you joining us today. I know everyone's time is extremely valuable, especially on the tail end of summer here. But on behalf of PSTrax, thanks everyone. And Ryan, I'll let you close us out.
Yeah. Thanks again. Thanks, Robbie, for setting this up, and thanks everyone for your time. Appreciate you being with us, and hopefully we'll see you next month. So stay safe and healthy out there.
Thanks, everyone. Stay safe.
Bye, guys.